you're having a little bit of trouble working on making a walking bass line on a tune that has unusual harmony movement, like Stella by Starlight, let me give you a couple of reminders that I think should help to simplify the process for you. Welcome to Learn Jazz Bass with Matt Rybicki. I'm glad that you're here. We're talking about Stella by Starlight today, partially because a viewer specifically asked about making more functional, logical, pleasant bass lines on this tune. And it's not certainly the strangest harmonic movement that you can have, but there are a couple of spots where that's a little bit unusual. So there's a couple of simple reminders, as I said. The first is that whether it's tunes with normal changes or not, there is an invaluable benefit to spending the time sort of stopping everything and slowly working through how you're going to approach one note to the next target note. Very, very helpful to me to use a piece of paper, actually writing out what you're doing. Try a couple things. You know the first note and the next note, so let's say first note of the first bar and the note of the second bar you're going to, you've got that. Try a couple of options to get between the two. Just work on that little section until you find something that you like. Write it down to remember it, unless you have perfect recall memory. Write it down so that you can remember it. But this process, especially when we're working with non-root downbeats, which we'll talk about in a second, especially when you're working on that. But the process of thinking about what notes are available on a beat is so impactful. I can't say enough how incredibly helpful it is to just stop and think and work it out slowly. Things should quickly sort of snap into place in many instances when you do that. So that's the first general reminder. The second is, remember that we have our normal ways of approaching a target note, as always. A half step below or above, a whole step below or above, or a fifth of the target note below or above. That's all still applies if we can use it. The problem with when the harmony is a little weird is that that doesn't always naturally sort of manifest. It doesn't come easily because of the movement of the harmony. So the other two quote unquote tricks, they're super simple, is to use repeated notes. Even just one repeated note in your walking line can really get you out of a potential jam. And the other is to rely on arpeggios. If you're a beginner player, you may be using arpeggios a lot. Here I'm talking more to the intermediate player who's trying to find their way out of a box, so to speak. Using arpeggios allows us to cover more space, more of the register of the instrument, more of the fingerboard, da-da-da-da-da, and that gives you more potential ways out if you're getting away from just whole step movement or half step movement between each note. By making these leaps that an arpeggio gives us, you've got more opportunity to find something that works a little better. So again, I just want to repeat one more time. Really, there is just not enough I can say about grabbing that staff paper and working on this bar to this bar and just figuring out what chords work, but we've got to have some goals in mind. And so our first goal is the generic one, getting to the root on each downbeat. I've given you a worksheet in the PDF, two worksheets actually, where I've put the roots in. Of course, you could do it yourself. I'm just trying to make it easier for you. I put the roots in and left the rest of the measure blank. So you can ask yourself, how can I get from this note to the next? The second exercise has to do with not using the root on the downbeat, but rather other chord tones or the possibility of other chord tones on downbeats. I did this process when I worked out this line that I want to play for you right now. The first chorus of Stella by Starlight has the roots on every downbeat, where applicable when the chord changes. The second chorus, I'm using more of other chord tones in trying to find more interesting lines or different lines. And I made decisions about what I wrote out. I didn't like certain things I did. I liked others, and I actually wrote it out. I'm playing exactly what I wrote. And I want to also take just a quick aside and mention that here I'm using the play along from the feel book, which I have mentioned before. And if you haven't heard me talk about it, it's in a really amazing, relatively new play along where they have truly great players playing excellently. And I just want to tell you a quick story. when I started to use it, I noticed something special. You guys may know that I was 26 years in Manhattan playing this music. And there is a certain intensity to New York players, sort of on the whole, that is hard to find somewhere else. I moved to North Carolina about 5 years ago, and I haven't had a chance to play with as many New York style players here. Not that any of the players here are bad, but when I started with this play along and I was playing Have You Met Miss Jones, Willie Jones III is playing drums on this track. And I'm just playing with the drums. I don't even have the piano or bass on. And when he goes from a press roll and a break before a solo, so it's 2 feel with brushes, there's a break, and he does a press roll into time. When he starts playing time, I was like, there's New York. I'm back at home. I'm where I was for almost 30 years. So you're bringing part of New York City to your home when you were getting this app. We are talking in this music about the feeling being the most important thing. I will, happily argue with anybody that disagrees with that. The feeling is the most important thing. So why not try to elevate the feeling as you're using a tool to practice with? Like, you want to practice with good feeling. And that doesn't have anything to do with how great the bass players are and how great the piano players are on all these tracks. So I really recommend it. And so let's take a listen now to the bass lines I came up with. So hopefully you found that reasonable and a good enough bass line. There's some things that I could have done differently for sure, but I'm trying to follow these sort of rules that I set up for us. One thing that I don't also want to forget to mention is a reminder is to check out what Masters did on this recording. What did Paul Chambers play on the famous version of Stella by Starlight? You transcribing that also has incalculably invaluable help to creating a line. It doesn't have to be the memorization of the whole line, but figuring out how do I go from bar 2, which is this A7, to bar 3, which is generally a C minor 7. Like, how do I navigate that? What did Paul Chambers do? Just transcribe it to investigate that. Do that with Dave Holland. Do that with Wilbur Ware. Whomever will give you a bunch of information. So let's talk about the ways that I sort of got around this. Remember, the first course, I'm using roots on the downbeats, and this is also a sheet with some blank space for you to make your own in the PDF. So what I'm generally doing is, by necessity, sticking with many sort of triad-based or arpeggio-based things, like in bar 2, for example. Going back to bar 1, it's E minor 7 flat 5. I'm playing root, the flat 5th, here's the flat 3rd, and then I'm just using a half-step approach like I talked about to get to A. To get to A, I'll say that. here's the root A7, flat 9, and I just play root, 5th, root again, and then this natural third, C sharp of A's, I chose because it's a half step away from the root of C, right? So I rearranged in bar 2, I had the option of an A7 chord is A, C sharp, E natural, G, and you could put the flat 9 in there, B flat. I had those choices, and I wanted to make sure that I hit the root on A and the root on C minor 7. So I rearranged some of the note choices to make sure that C sharp was on beat 4, so I would be close to the C. Another tricky thing that comes up is from bar 4 to bar 5 when you have the same root, but the chord quality changes. So here in bar 4, I'm just using a whole step above the second F, the F minor 7 that's in bar 5. I play root on F7, bar 4, root, 5th, 3rd, G is a whole step above the next F. And then I'm sort of continuing down there to give it different flavor. I'm just going down an F, natural minor scale. So these are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about when I'm creating this line. Another aside, on the bridge, people often play G7 sharp 5 on the first 2 measures. On the field book, they have a very justified reason, which they explain why they're playing G7 flat 13. That flat 13 is E flat. It's the same as sharp 5, D sharp, E flat, same notes. But with a sharp 5, you wouldn't get a natural 5 in there. What I did was, in the first chorus, I'm sticking with actually playing the flat 13. I'm not playing a sharp 5, even though it says that. I'm not doing that. I'm sticking with what I hear. And then in the second chorus, I played a whole tone idea that goes with a G7 sharp 5. Just a sort of caveat pointing out. The other thing is the chords that's in parentheses in the B section, in the 5th bar of the B section. Normally we play A flat 7, A flat 7 sharp 11 sometimes, but again, field book guys have a justification, and it's probably more true to the original that it's E flat minor major 7 there, which shares a bunch of notes with A flat 7. I just wanted to point out why that says that there. So that's the first chorus approach. I am trying to just make sure that I hit those roots on the downbeats. Then the next chorus, what I'm doing is sort of letting the line dictate a little bit more about what my choices are, so that I can try to keep it smooth and connected, but I'm not forcing myself to play the root on each downbeat. As you'll see in the second worksheet page, I've given you oftentimes multiple registers of the chord tones, 1, 3, 5, 7 of every chord on beat 1, and I had to make them really small so we could see them. But what I'm saying to you there is, hey, choose one of these notes, or these are the available notes on the downbeat that are all chord tones. They're all going to work. So as you're making your line, you come along and you are thinking, looking, but really, as I say, do it yourself. Think about it. Okay, on beat 1 of the A minor 7 flat 5 bar, 2 bars before the bridge. On beat 1, what are the chord tones here of A minor 7 flat 5? Some of us, it's really sort of a natural thing, but sometimes it takes time to really think about what those 4 notes are. You have to have this very quickly to really be able to navigate the process of walking. So the more you can do where you are reinforcing what those notes of the chord are, the better. So really taking that time, and the struggle is the benefit, is what I'm trying to say. So as you can see from bar 1 and bar 2 of the second chorus, I'm starting the same. I'm playing the arpeggio of E minor 7 flat 5, root, flat 3rd, flat 5th, flat 7, I've left on D. Now instead of jumping to A, D to A is a strange movement usually. I mean, not strange, but let's just say that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a chord tone on the downbeat of bar 2. So D to A is a little bit strange. So what's closer than A? That is a chord tone. C sharp, E, G. The closest one is C sharp. You could also choose E because D to E is a whole step. I could choose E on the downbeat, but I chose C sharp. So then now I have the starting note, and now I've got the next target, which is the next downbeat, where we have C minor 7. What are all the options in various registers of C minor 7 that I have to choose from, and where sort of will the line take me? Continuing in measure 2, I'm gonna arpeggiate again the A7, but I'm starting from the third. Third, fifth, flat 7, root. So this is beat 4, I'm on A. Going A to C is what the chord movement is. The roots move that way, but it's a little bit weird to jump a minor third. So what's closer? The closest thing is a B flat. That's the flat 7 of C minor 7. Flat 7, root, and now I'm going to continue the idea. Here's the second, but here's the flat third of C minor 7, and this E flat sets us up well for the next chord, F7, because it's only a whole step away from F. Chords that move in fourths, there's a natural sort of movement that we are a little bit more used to. They're the lines we sort of work on make a lot of sense, and there's a lot of possibilities when the chord goes up a fourth or down a fourth or up a fifth even sometimes. And possibly like in thirds, depending on situation. Nonetheless, so this C minor 7 to F7 is a 2-5 in B flat. The key is B flat. It doesn't go to B flat, but still, we can recognize, if it's helpful, you could recognize the first two bars as a minor 2-5 of D minor, E minor 7 flat 5, A7, resolved to D. And then C minor 7, F7 should resolve to B flat. It doesn't, but I'm just saying, understanding and recognizing right away, oh, that's a 2-5, they're a fourth away. You should have worked out things already, or you will work out things that work on 2-5s, and you use that there. But again, the question is, okay, now I've got this root that doesn't change from F7 to F minor 7. So how do I get around that? And I'm using the same idea. I'm trying to keep notes closer to each other. So starting from the F7, this is bar 4, root, flat 7, this is 6, and I'm sort of going this bigger idea of chromatically going down, and then this is just a passing tone, D flat to C on the downbeat of F minor 7. C is the fifth. It's an available chord tone, completely normal and okay to use there, especially when you've got this bigger idea. So fifth, fourth, B flat, flat third, and now the reason I didn't play a root in here in this bar at all, because I am trying to make the continuity of the line take precedence. And I can easily get out of it because F minor 7 to B flat 7 is also a 2-5. And in fact, this does resolve to E flat. So I feel confident about getting out of this situation. I know this is a 2-5. So even though in bar 5 of the second chorus, I'm not playing the root at all, it all sort of resolves in sound when I arpeggiate the B flat 7 in bar 6. So I play F with the fifth of B flat, D, the third of B flat, the root, and then flat 7. So that A flat, now again, a jump from A flat to E flat would be a strange movement for a walking line. So I want something closer than a fifth, than a jump of a fifth. The closest thing, it doesn't always have to be the closest, but the closest thing is the G on the next bar, which is the third of E flat major. We're starting from A flat again. We could also go to B flat. That's a whole step away. So these are not hard and fast rules. They're rather reminders for you in a way to guide your own work. Yes, I can make walking lines for you if you wanted to buy that. Like I could write out walking lines for you, but how fun is that? It's not very fun. Now at the very, very beginning, it can be actually really impactful to read somebody else's bass line. So please don't misunderstand that I'm saying you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't seek out other bass lines as you study. But ultimately, we're trying to create our own thing. And the process of working this out and working out what all those chord tones are and thinking in this small way with target notes is just absolutely applicable and helpful in every single way that you can imagine. So I hope that this was helpful for you, especially for our viewer that asked that specific question about this. So remember, spend the time doing it. Think about the normal ways we have of approaching target notes. Take little sections, work compositionally, very slowly with a piece of paper. Study what the masters did. All that stuff is going to give you a ton of help. When you study what the masters did, also, by the way, I would almost guarantee you that you will be surprised with some of the simplicity and repetition that you'll find. But doing it yourself really gives you a lot of confidence. I'm saying transcribing it yourself gives you a tremendous amount of confidence to play that way too, because you're like, I heard Paul Chambers repeat these 2 bars 5 times in this chorus or whatever. I'm gonna do it. Like, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. So that is part of the benefit of transcribing too. I hope it was helpful for you, as I said, and check for the PDF below. And always remember, straight ahead and strive for tone.